You're tired, not tired of God, tired of trying. There's a difference, and I think you know exactly what I mean. You set the alarm early to pray, and you felt nothing. You read the Bible, and it felt like reading an instruction manual in a language you half understand. You tried to be kind, tried to be patient, tried to be the person you think you're supposed to be. And by 2 p.m., you'd already failed at 2 of those things. And then comes the thought, the one that follows you around like a shadow. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Here's what I want to say to you today, and I want you to actually hear it. That exhaustion, that feeling that you're paddling hard and getting nowhere, that's not a sign that you need to try harder. That might be a sign that you've been doing the whole thing wrong. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean it as the most freeing thing I can say to you right now. Because Jesus, on the actual worst night of his life, sat down with his closest friends and told them something that completely flips the script on how most of us think about the Christian life. It's in John 15, and I think it's going to change something for you today. Let's go. Before we read a single word of this passage, I need you to feel where Jesus is when he says it, because the context is everything. It's Thursday night, late. Jerusalem is packed. It's Passover, so there are pilgrims everywhere, fires burning, the city loud and crowded. Jesus and his disciples just finished their last meal together in an upper room somewhere in the city. You know this dinner? We call it the Last Supper. But here's what's really happening in that room that night. Jesus has already knelt on the floor and washed 12 pairs of dirty feet, including the feet of the man who is about to hand him over to be killed. He's already told them that one of them is a traitor. Judas has already stood up, slipped out, and disappeared into the night. The room is heavy. The disciples don't fully understand what's happening, but something feels wrong. Something feels like an ending, and Jesus knows exactly what is coming for him. Within a few hours, soldiers are going to show up in a garden and drag him away. Within hours after that, he will be standing before Pontius Pilate. By the next afternoon, Friday, he will be dead. These are the last normal hours, the last conversation. And Jesus is choosing every word carefully because he knows they won't have him much longer. Scholars call John chapters 13 through 17 the farewell discourse. And it's some of the most tender, raw, intimate language Jesus ever uses. He's not teaching a crowd. He's talking to his people, his friends, the ones he loves. And as they leave that upper room, probably walking through the narrow streets of Jerusalem toward the Mount of Olives, Jesus says something that stops them in their tracks. I am the true vine, and I want you to feel the weight of that timing. This man is hours from his death. He has 1,000 things he could say, and he chooses to talk about a vine and some branches. There's a reason for that. Let's find out why. Read this slowly. Don't rush it. I'm going to give you the NIV, John 15, verses 1 through 8. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Okay, let's break this down, because there's more here than it looks like on the surface. First, look at the cast of characters. You've got the vine, that's Jesus. You've got the gardener, that's the Father. You've got the branches, that's you and me. And you've got fruit, which is the point of the whole thing. 4 roles, and Jesus is crystal, clear about who plays what. He is the vine. You are a branch. Now here's where I need you to really stop and think about that. Because a branch doesn't make fruit. A branch carries fruit. And it can only do that one way, by staying connected to the thing that actually produces the life. Cut a branch off a vine and come back in 3 days. It's dead. It doesn't matter how motivated that branch was. It doesn't matter how disciplined it was. Disconnected from the source, it has nothing. Second, notice what Jesus doesn't say. He never says, work harder. He never says, be more disciplined. He never says, try again. The entire engine of this metaphor runs in the opposite direction from what most of us have been taught. Fruit is not a product of your effort. Fruit is the overflow of a life that is actually connected. Third, and this one hits different when you feel it, Jesus is saying this to people who are about to completely fall apart. That very night, every one of those disciples is going to run. Peter, the boldest one, is going to stand by a fire in a courtyard and tell 3 different people he doesn't even know who Jesus is. They scatter, they hide, they grieve, they fail in almost every way a person can fail. And Jesus knows that, and he still says, stay connected, come back to the vine. That's all. That's the whole message. I know the vine and branches image has been around forever in church circles. So, let me try to come at it from an angle that might actually land for you differently. Think about your phone. Right now, wherever it is, when your phone is plugged into the wall charging, it doesn't have to try to charge. It doesn't have to manufacture electricity. It doesn't have to discipline itself into getting to 100%. All it has to do is stay connected. The power flows because the connection exists. But the moment you unplug it, it starts dying. And here's the thing, it doesn't die immediately. You can run on a dying battery for a long time. You can scroll, you can text, you can make calls, you can look completely functional right up until the moment the screen goes black. That's a lot of people's spiritual lives. Impressive output on a connection that ran dry a long time ago. Now, let me give you a different angle on this, because I think the phone thing can make abiding sound too passive, like you're just sitting there getting charged up. So, think about this instead. Think about a musician, someone who has been playing guitar for 20 years. They've done the drills, they've practiced the scales, they know the theory, and now they sit down to play, and it's not mechanical, it's not stiff, it flows, it feels natural, it sounds like something alive. That's not because the discipline disappeared. The discipline became interior. It moved from the outside in. And now what comes out of them is the overflow of 20 years of staying connected to the craft. That's closer to what Jesus is describing. The goal is not a life that strains. The goal is a life that flows. Because something real has been formed on the inside through consistent connection. Now, I want to zoom in on one word because I think this word is the key to the whole passage. In English, it gets translated as remain or abide. And Jesus uses it 8 times in 11 verses. That's not an accident. In ancient literature, that kind of repetition is a signal. He's basically underlining it, circling it, putting it in bold. This word is the point. The Greek word is meno. And here's what's really interesting. In 1st century Greek, meno was not a mystical word. It wasn't a spiritual technical term. It was an everyday, practical, ordinary word that meant stay where you are, don't leave, hold your position. A soldier who meno-ed held his ground when the battle got hard. A tenant who meno-ed stayed in their house and didn't walk out. A guest who meno-ed at your home actually slept there. They didn't sneak off to somewhere else. So, when Jesus says, remain in me, he is not saying, have warm spiritual feelings about God. Float in a peaceful Christian cloud. Go to a retreat and feel close to Jesus for a weekend. He is saying, don't drift. When life gets hard and it feels like nothing is working and God feels far away, don't walk away from this. Stay. Keep coming back. This is where you live now. Don't give that up. Meno is about location, not emotion. It's about where you keep returning, not about whether you always feel something when you get there. That distinction, right there, that might be the most freeing thing you hear today. Okay, I have to be straight with you here, because there's a version of abiding teaching that makes it sound like the Christian life is just chill. Like you exhale, let go of everything, and fruit just starts raining down from heaven automatically. That's not what the text says, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I left you with that impression. Look at verse 10, right here in the same passage. Jesus says, "If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." He just connected abiding directly to keeping commandments. That's not passive, that's a choice, that's a daily decision, that's work, but it's a different kind of work. Here's the difference. There's the effort of someone who is straining to produce, and there's the effort of someone who is fighting to stay connected. Those are not the same thing. One is a person trying to manufacture fruit out of their own willpower. The other is a person doing whatever it takes to not lose the relationship that produces the fruit. Think of it like a marriage. A good marriage doesn't just happen because two people decided to love each other. You have hard conversations. You show up on days when you don't feel like it. You choose over and over to stay close. You don't earn the love, but you do tend the relationship. And the fruit, the joy, the intimacy, the growth that comes from two people who keep choosing each other. That's abiding. It's grace-empowered obedience. Jesus does the sustaining, you do the staying. And the fruit comes from that. Not from how hard you try, but from how consistently you return. So, I don't want to leave this in abstract territory. Let me get practical. What does meno, what does this staying, actually look like in your life this week? In your prayer life? Stop trying to have a spiritual experience every time you open your mouth. Prayer is not a performance. Some of the most honest prayers in Scripture are practically one sentence. The meno approach to prayer sounds like this. Before you open anything, before you start a list, you just say, "Jesus, I'm here, I'm tired, I don't feel much right now, but I'm not leaving." That's it. That's the connection. 10 minutes of honest presence is worth more than 40 minutes of religious performance. Because God doesn't need your eloquence. He wants your face turned toward Him. In your daily decisions, this is where abiding gets an ethical shape, where it gets real. You're in a conversation and you feel anger rising. You're about to say something you'll regret. In that exact moment, the meno question is not, "How do I suppress this feeling?" The question is, am I staying connected to Jesus right now, or am I walking away from that in this moment? That's it. That's the whole decision. Galatians 5 tells us that love, joy, peace, patience, these are fruit of the Spirit. They're not things you generate. They grow in the soil of a life that stays connected. You can't force patience, but you can stay attached to the one who actually produces it. In your rest, Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He actually offers rest, not productivity, not a new strategy, rest. And notice, he calls it my yoke. A yoke isn't nothing. It means you're moving, there's direction, there's shared work, but it's light because you're not pulling alone. Practically, this means at least 1 hour a week where you are not performing for God, not producing for anyone, not consuming content, just being, just present. That is not laziness. That is exactly what Jesus is inviting you into. The fruit of this kind of life, Galatians 5:22-23 gives us the list. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. 9 things. And not one of them can be gritted into existence. You cannot discipline yourself into having genuine joy. You cannot force real peace. These grow. They are agricultural, not mechanical. They come from a life in the Spirit, which, to bring it back to John 15, means a life that stays connected to the vine. And Philippians 4:7 says it this way: "The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." That peace surpasses understanding, which means it doesn't require your circumstances to make sense. It doesn't wait for your life to get easier. It guards you in the middle of the hard thing, but it comes from God, not from your management of the situation. It comes from staying close to the one who holds the situation in his hands. I want to take you back to that room one more time. Thursday night, Jerusalem. 11 men sitting around a table, confused, anxious, not fully understanding what's happening. And Jesus, hours from his death, looks at them and says this, not try harder, not do better, not here's a list of what I need from you. He says, stay close to me. I'm not leaving you. You are already clean, already accepted because of what I've spoken over you. Remain in me. That's it. That's the whole thing. These men are about to scatter. They are going to fail spectacularly, and Jesus knows it. And he still says, stay. Come back. The door doesn't close on you when you fall. If you are spiritually exhausted today, and I mean genuinely burned out from trying so hard, I want you to hear this. The answer is not more effort in the same direction. The answer is turning around and walking back to the vine. Not because you earned it, not because you finally got it right, but because the invitation is still open. You are the branch. He is the vine. Your one job is to stay. Stop straining. Start staying. The fruit will come, not from you, through you. Trust the gardener to tend what he planted.